whenever I make a speech like this, I think this is my last job ever, and then I can go to America. But no, I can't go to America because Trump's running it. But so, you know, I'll be setting up a tent somewhere. Certainly, as a female artist in a country that has basically promoted white male leaders from privileged backgrounds for a long time, it's taken me a long time to get to the point where I felt I had a really strong voice. Having arrived at that point, I realised I have to basically listen for the rest of my life. And I hope I have the strength and courage to do that. When I'm asked what is the future, how do I see the future policies, how do I see myself as a cultural leader, I suppose that I think that my primary focus for the next 20 years is to hold the space for future generations who have so many things to say. And I hope at NIDA that what we can do is accept the fact that most of the teachers at NIDA are middle-aged, that we have things to offer, but we're also looking at generations of young people who need to do a lot of talking, who hold a lot of wisdom, and I want us to hold the space for them. Most of the leaders of major performing arts organisations are privileged private school boys. Nothing wrong with that, but if you get a whole lot of them who are running the majors and the leaders, the arts minister decides to take away the money from arts, not from the majors, but from the small to medium sector, that has a vast impact on the ecology of the art form that I love so much. And the impact is that, of course, a lot of the men who are my mates were going into the majors, like myself, following a very clear career path. I followed my father's career path. I knew what I wanted to say, I knew how I would get there, I knew what my ambitions were. A lot of the women, a lot of my colleagues who had what I would consider voices of the other, had the courage to go and create their own spaces, to go and create their own companies, their own organisations, their own way of speaking. And those were the organisations that were under fundamental attack financially. How are they going to sustain themselves? And I made the calculated decision that I wanted to defend the Australia Council because I believe that it is imperative that we have arts organisations that hold governments separate and that they fund sustainability. But I also wanted to see a future that was better for young women, transgender people, men of different cultures. I wanted to see a much more inclusive art sector. So I decided that I would go to NIDA, to run NIDA, and try and create as many opportunities for versions of cultural leadership as possible. Most of the major arts institutions that in some way or another are national arts institutions are between 40 to 60 years old. So it's time for us to reassess what role those institutions will play. And it's the young people, the innovators, the fresh thinkers who will tell us what will happen to those institutions. And I think that in a lot of arts organisations, we're looking at boards that are, of course, they're dedicated, they care about the culture, but they tend to be my age and up, and often white and often men. And I don't think it's good enough. Australia has so much rich diversity of culture. If we can convince the economic rationalists that they benefit from culture, that in fact if we do not have our arts and our culture, we cannot go forward, that they need us as the rich tapestry. we're the protectors of empathy. We enrich cities, towns, villages. I can't think of anything more important right now than the creative alliance between enterprise, innovation, business, culture, and identity. I don't know much about regional identity, although I honour it and look forward to learning more. But as an Australian, I'm constantly investigating my own sense of identity, and as a mum, I want my son to feel it deeply that he belongs to this land. I'm very honoured to have spoken to you all, and I feel that I've just touched at the kind of the top level when I know that all of you are engaged from the grassroots coming up, and that is actually the most important contribution that can be made to our culture. So I speak from the bottom of my heart and saying thank you, and it's a privilege to lead an institution that will be driven by people such as yourselves. Thank you.